Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are tuned in from today. Welcome to Howdy Partner. This is a weekly Twitch series that highlights AWS Partner Network partners that have built innovative solutions validated by our AWS solutions architects. My name is Tina Myers. I am a partner solutions architect here at AWS. And today we are going to be joined by a partner based out of the UK called Pimloc, who is going to be demonstrating their solution, the Secure Redact platform. So Secure Redact lets you make video anonymous by default to help protect personally identifiable information. The software automatically redacts faces, heads, number plates, other types of sensitive information that are in images, video files, and live streams, and I just learned audio, to improve the security of video by utilizing different machine learning services. So they have glowing reviews from different law enforcement agencies, healthcare organizations, schools, manufacturing companies, and so many more. So first, I'm going to bring on my co-host. So Shardul, hello. You are muted.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shardul Vaidya. I'm a partner solutions architect with AWS. Yeah, sorry, as usual, having some technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm excited today to see how awesome Secure Redact is by Pimloc. We've been having a nice conversation as we build up to the stream, and should be great. Yeah, photos, video, and audio, and all because all through their super awesome machine learning algorithm. So that should be amazing to see in action.
Yes, I am super excited about this episode. I've been talking with them for a little while, and just the work they're doing is so interesting and can be used in so many different types of situations. So, all right, let's go ahead and bring them onto the stage. Drum roll. So here we have Simon and Guy from Pimloc. So welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Howdy, partners. Great to meet you. My name's Simon Randall. I'm CEO, one of the co-founders of Pimloc. It's great to be here.
Likewise, great to be here, everyone. Guy Williams. I'm the sales director at Pimloc.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here today. I know it is very, very late for you both. What time is it there?
Officially, it's past our bedtime. It's 10:50 p.m.
Okay. Not terrible, but I'm sure a little bit later than you're used to doing some things like this.
It's great that you have us on the show. We are very happy to be here.
Good. Very happy to have you guys. So Simon, you mentioned that you are co-founder. So
Yeah.
How long has Pimloc been around for?
We set the company up at the beginning of 2018. Yeah, so we've been around for a while, actually, although we have had a few incarnations. I think people call them pivots, but we've it's I could give you a bit of background on the kind of the origin of the company, but we've it took us a bit of time to find the right fit for our capabilities and kind of market areas, actually. So a long time ago, we started off this journey making cameras, interestingly. So the journey started quite a while ago, where we were making small kind of intelligent wearable camera devices that you could clip on. They would analyze what's happening, and then they would work out when to take pictures and videos for you. So you could kind of be hands-free in the moment. You could be relaxed, get very nice natural shots of doing things very naturally. Everyone loved the idea of being free in the moment, but the reality was that afterwards you would have to spend 3 days going through what we called the wall of death, which is just hundreds and thousands of images and videos. And, so you'd get maybe 10, 15 amazing shots that you couldn't get any other way, but you'd also get 1,000 rubbish ones. And so we were kind of like, well, actually, how do we help people get into this wall of death and find kind of the images and the moments they care about? Was the first kind of big insight. And then the second thing is we launched just before Google Glass appeared on the scene. And we went from having really interesting conversations about capturing life naturally to very detailed discussions about privacy very quickly. And we were kind of on the cusp of new automated devices that were always on and always capturing. And we basically had to spend a lot of time thinking about what's a good etiquette for usage of these new types of products. And so we actually wrote an etiquette guide and put it in the camera products and shipped it out. And anyway, a long story short, we realized that the world genuinely doesn't need any more cameras. And this is quite long ago. And now I think you can say, the growth, as we will see, the kind of the growth of camera penetration across a range of different sectors is just going through the roof. And so we switched the business into software. And so actually what we need to be able to do is build systems that can go into very large streams of images and video, understand the context of them, help people find things in them, and then also protect the sensitive data that comes out of them. Even back with the camera, we added like you could twist the lens, and when you twisted it, the lens went yellow, so it was very clear that you were no longer capturing images. And we had to spend a long time thinking about the systems that we could provide, so that if you took an image of someone on the street and they got upset, you could show them how easily it was to delete and remove and etc. And so we've kind of been thinking on this kind of imaging and privacy journey for quite some time.
Very cool.
That was a very long answer to your very quick question.
Well, that's very interesting, though, and that brings another question to light. So, in Secure Redact, so you're blurring faces, blurring sensitive information. So, how does the platform differ from a traditional video editing software?
So we have some very clear use cases that we basically tune the system against. And most of those boil down to a need for an individual operator or a user to effectively anonymize all the personally identifiable information in a video, except for maybe one or two individuals. Because normally they're having to anonymize a video for its process to go into court, maybe for a freedom of information request. In Europe, we have obviously GDPR, and you have something called a subject access request, where citizens can request the data that businesses hold of them, be they restaurants, bars, cafes, etc. And so we have a huge swathe of use cases where people, businesses, public and private sector, have to very quickly and very accurately anonymize all the footage in a video before they then submit it to the next stage. And so unlike video editing, where you as an editor have a creative vision and you need to go in and create something, we know that all our users basically need to be able to make the most of automation. So I think on average, we can find about 2 million instances of faces in about 20 or 30 minutes of CCTV from like a busy location. If you think about every face in every frame, in every second of the video, that's a lot of data. And if you're going to go and do that using traditional video editing applications where you can go frame by frame, it's going to take you months to do like 5 minutes of video. And so you need to be able to have really good automation for finding, faces, heads, number plates, lots of, well-known things that people need to anonymize. But you also need really good intelligent editing tools alongside that, because there's always extra things you sometimes want to anonymize as well, be they pictures on the wall or some tattoos or ID cards or whatever else it is. And so we have, in the application, we've got the benefit of world-class automation for the things that 95% of people need to do. And then we've got some really good editing tools in there as well, so that people can then pick up the other 5%. So it isn't to say that video editing tools aren't good, it's just that they haven't been tuned for this very specific use case. Certainly with a lot of body-worn camera footage that we're seeing, where you've got multiple people in the scene, being able to start reviewing the video with everybody already detected and ready for anonymization means that the workflow is sped up a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So before we do get into more about the company, more about the product itself, we do have a question in chat. I'm going to put it on the screen. So they are asking, they say, I'm sure there's other solutions out there that do the same sort of thing. So what is Secure Redact's value proposition? So why should they be choosing Secure Redact over one of your competitors?
It's a good question. It's very easy to build a solution that works pretty well. And we were having this conversation just before we came on air, actually. So, building a system that will pick up 85% of the cases is a pretty easy thing to do. You can take face detectors off the shelf from a range of different providers, AWS recognition being one of them. You could build an application wrapper on top, and you could build a system that, so for this video call, for example, it would be pretty easy to pick a face detector off the shelf, detect the 4 of us, and anonymize those faces. If you think about the corpus of CCTV footage in isolation to start with, so fixed camera, moving subjects within a scene, if you think about all the different environments that you see cameras put in, so one in a cafe, one outside a cafe, one in a bar, one outside the bar, one inside a bus, one in a theatre, one in a football stadium. Those scenes, the angles and the distances are so variable that actually you need a system that's been trained on very, very highly variable images and video scenes in real life in order to be able to get it to a level that's actually usable in practice. And so even, if you think even a system at 99% with the numbers I said earlier, at 99%, you're probably still missing 20,000 faces in 10, 15 minutes of video. And so for a very, very small increase in error rate, we see quite a big exponential jump in manual time required to fill in misdetections or remove false positives. And so, and that's just CCTV. And then if you move into body-worn cameras where you have moving camera and moving subjects, the challenge then becomes very difficult. And so in answer to your question, we do 2 things very well, actually 3 things. But the first one is we have very good detectors that we are continually improving, and effectively we built a system over time to be able to highlight and pick up all the edge cases, and then we go away, we build training data sets, we augment, we synthesize those, and make sure that we're just constantly pushing the precision of the detection system. That's the first thing. So we have really good detection quality across all the different camera domains. The second thing is, the second stage of that is we do a really good job of tracking as well. So if you remember the use case I was talking about at the beginning, a lot of it is I need to anonymize everything except for that guy or that lady or that person. And so not only do you need to do a good job of detecting every single piece of information, every single frame of the video, you also need to do a really good job of tracking them throughout as well. And with a fixed camera and CCTV, there's one way of doing it. When you've got a moving camera and a moving subject, it actually can be very difficult. And if you think about some of the situations where people may be up front with a body-worn camera, there may be some confrontation rolling around on the floor, etc. It can be quite a difficult problem. And so the amount of effort we've put into precision on real security video is probably the first thing. Don't take my word for that. You can sign up for an online trial and you can give it a go and put some videos in yourself. We've basically built out quite a detailed corpus of testing and validation data that covers lots of different scenarios of CCTV, body-worn, dash cam, drones. We've got SLR footage in there. We've got mobile footage. We've got a bit of 360. And as new kind of camera types are coming online, we're making sure that we're adding them in to make sure that they work well. Sorry, go on, Shardul.
Oh, no, I was just about to throw a curveball in there. Have you tried the Apple Vision Pro, and do you support it for redaction in 3-dimensional space?
I think they have a solution, actually. So we have had people putting 3D content into the platform. We tend to suggest people will squash it to maybe 180 or 90 degrees because actually a lot of the time you can spend a lot of the time redacting things that you don't necessarily need.
Right.
But your point is a good one, which is the volume of video capture and the use cases that are coming online are growing pretty exponentially.
Yeah.
We have a pretty big business in public safety, and historically that was mostly CCTV and mobile. It's now predominantly body worn, and now we have a lot of drone footage coming online as well. And so very slightly different domain of video, slightly different angle. And so just accuracy, just genuine and underlying accuracy of automation gives you a massive productivity jump in basically quality. The second thing to say is, alongside that, you also do genuinely need really good flexible tools, because the automation's never ever going to be 100%. And just given the corpus of security footage, we kind of believe we'll get close, but it's never going to be 100. And so you're always going to need tools that allow you to very quickly triage, and find where the system thinks you should go and check first. So where are there some breaks in some tracks? Where are the areas you should go and check? But also then to just detect, track, and anonymize other areas in the video as well. And we basically, when we come to talk about kind of the deployment modes and the APIs we have, there's two core workflows. We have one workflow which is fully automated, where you can put images and video in, you can get images and video out fully redacted, so everything's anonymized. And we have a second workflow where you can pass images and videos in, you can open them up in the Secure Redact application. Someone can go back through the workflow, and then you can pass the video and images back out again. And so the second workflow works really well for people running video management systems, digital evidence management systems, claims management systems, any sort of system that's got image and video and audio data in it. Then you can get it out, processed, and back again. But we also have another API. We have some customers on the transport side, which is where they're capturing lots of data for model training purposes, and they just want everything anonymized. And so data can go in and get anonymized. You can sample it, you can review it. We can then fine-tune models if we need to, and then you can pass them back out again. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question, Mr. Questioner?
We'll find out in chat.
Yeah. Customers always ask that question too, actually. And we always say, look, we have a SaaS product online. You can sign up for a free account. We give everybody 20 minutes free per month. And so, because we have some customers who are very heavy users, and we have quite a few customers like schools, for example, who will use it infrequently, and so they can actually just sign up and they can use the products as they need to. But the proof is always in the pudding. So if you've got some data that you capture in mind, just upload it and see how it works, basically. With kind of, I'd say with some of the bigger business users, when they come to us, they tend to fit into one of two buckets. They'll either upload some video, they will eyeball it, and they will qualitatively make a call as to whether they think it's good or better than what they have. And then we have other customers who either they will have annotated some data, will pass it to us, we'll run it, and then they can get some proper PR metrics out on the precision and recall of the models. And in other cases, we have some customers who come to us and say, well, here's the data. Could you mark it up? Could you run it? And then could you give us the results? And then we can at least evaluate it together. So I guess depending on level of maturity and setup, there's different modes of interacting. But if there are listeners that did want to look at the APIs, then again, you can sign up online for the APIs. You can get a key. You can use that 20 minutes for free. And then if you did want to put some data through, we can help you get some specific metrics out for your data types as well. It's very cool. The how accurate is your system question comes up a lot. It's kind of like, well, on our test data, it's pretty accurate. And so we try very hard to build representative test data sets so that the results that we see will be the same as end users. But pretty much every new camera that comes online is in a different angle, in a different position, and so there are still edge cases that we can pick up.
Now, before we came online, you were mentioning something about it being able to redact audio as well.
Yes.
What kinds of use cases have you seen for that? How well does it perform in those situations?
So we started off with CCTV footage,
right.
Most of which doesn't actually have an audio channel. But now we've got so much body-worn camera footage going through the system, which does have both a visual and an audio channel. And what we've found for a lot of our use cases is the anonymization of the audio takes just as long as the video in some cases. And so we've basically been building out our audio capabilities. And so at the moment, you can listen through the video and you can, you can mute or you can beep out certain sections of audio. You can then invert the redaction so that you can listen to just the redacted bits. So that's quite useful because it actually allows you to just pick out the bits that you've removed. We've also built out a pipeline now to be able to use transcriptions of the audio to do the anonymization. So you can effectively just delete words out of the transcript and we'll automatically mute them out of the audio channel. That's been in testing, works pretty well actually, even on body-worn camera footage where audio can be quite shaky because people can be at a distance, lots of people, lots of overlapping speech. It's still useful enough to save quite a bit of time. So that'll be going in the product soon actually. That's not in there yet, but it'll be going in later Q2 basically.
Nice. That'll be an exciting release.
Yeah, sorry, Tim, I was going to say, since we added that in for body-worn, people are now saying to us, well, it turns out I've also got a load of audio files that just need redacting. Can I put those in? And so we're now adding broader support for audio-only files and things as well.
Okay. So I don't see any additional questions in there just yet. So you guys have been, so I met you guys through a process at AWS called a foundational technical review. So how long have you been with AWS? Have you been building on AWS the entire time?
We have indeed, yes. So yeah, we've been we have a SaaS product, so SecureDeck, that runs. We have one version that runs in Ireland for our European customers, and we've got another version that runs in your West Virginia data center for US customers, basically. So we've got kind of the two sovereignty for the two different regions, but that's been running for a number of years now, actually.
Nice. How long have you been, I guess, an AWS customer, and what made you decide to go over to the APN, so the AWS Partner Network side of things?
Do you want to pick that up, Guy?
Yeah, certainly. So the partner network side of things was probably the middle of last year. So as part of our go-to-market approach, obviously looking at leveraging the fact that we are an AWS customer, and therefore working with you guys on the partner network obviously gives us the opportunity of talking about ourselves more widely, and having access to the support of yourselves, but also obviously lots of other partners within the network. And so obviously that's kind of part of in Simon's answer to the previous question around sort of differentiation, and obviously go to market comes as part of that differentiation as well. And so yeah, it was, I think, the middle of last year, and as you say, Tina, we went through the foundational technical review, and now we're kind of looking at the next steps of engaging with the network as well.
And sorry, got distracted for just a second. What kind of experience have you had with the partner network? Are there any cool opportunities that you are able to discuss that you've been able to become a part of by being part of it?
Yeah, so I think from our side, definitely it's a great place to be. I would caveat it's our early stages of starting to kind of broaden ourselves out on the network, but I think the value for us is kind of being part of a kind of I guess the broader ecosystem. So when we look at our end customers, we might start off in a kind of one-to-one conversation with them, i.e. they are evaluating us as a kind of standalone proposition, as it were. But that conversation quite quickly broadens out to we really want your redaction capabilities, but we also it's great that it's on AWS because that gives us, the end customer, the opportunity of leveraging their AWS infrastructure and support. And then there may also then be an additional partner that we kind of term ecosystem partners. So it might be a video management platform, or it might be a digital evidence management platform that then is the kind of the third party or the fourth party in the relationship as well. So you've got the end customer, you've got ourselves, you might have an adjacent platform, and then there will be yourselves as, I guess, the kind of the layer that knits all of that together. And so definitely some really cool opportunities coming our way. But also there's the opportunity to kind of match the sectors that we focus most heavily on, are also, by no coincidence, sectors that clearly AWS is strong in as well. So it's kind of that kind of partnership piece as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we have the APIs for other partners, but also we built some really good integrations to some of the native Azure storage locations as well. And so if customers are using their own private AWS solutions and storage, we've now got some really good, simple ways of hooking those up to the application for batch processing as well. And so I guess just because we've been in the ecosystem for a while, we've got some really good kind of hooks and infrastructure now, so that if customers are already running there, and that's where most of their workloads are, it's going to be pretty easy for them to plumb some of our capabilities in and out as well. So yes, as Guy said, we've got a few active engagements happening at the moment that we probably can't mention, but we're expecting that to grow quite a lot this year as well. So it's exciting times, basically.
Good. Sounds exciting. So I know the most exciting portion of these for people is always getting into the demo. So if you guys are ready, I would love to see a little bit about how this works.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't I share my screen?
Okay.
While we're actually pulling it up, let's talk a little bit more about the tech, because you did say, there may be some shared infrastructure, right? So I know AWS has a service called Kinesis Video. Do you all support like directly ingesting from a Kinesis video stream? Because I think I would imagine that really simplifies things when you can say, oh, hey, add a trusted role from Pimloc's account into the customer's AWS account, and all it can do is access Kinesis Video. And now we're talking about like a one-click integration, which would really honestly be awesome,
So we do two things actually. We do accept live video. So actually, I should have probably said that at the beginning. We kind of covered two core use cases. One around the redaction of files, so video and audio files. The other is we have a live video proposition as well, where we can take a live or numerous live video streams in. They get anonymized, and then you have a choice. You can either rebroadcast the anonymized stream. So we have some use cases where, say, for example, in a transport hub or maybe in a manufacturing environment, you want to be able to understand how people are interacting in the manufacturing floor, how many people are on the floor, whether they're going into dangerous areas, what they're doing, but you don't need to have the biometric data of who the specific individuals are. We can take the video feeds from the security center, we can anonymize them and then rebroadcast them maybe to the operations team. And then the operations teams can get a really clear view of, in the transport hub, maybe where the queuing is, how many people are on the floor, how many people are passing through, what we call kind of anonymized analytics. And then so effectively you get the anonymized stream, you can get that to broadcast and review, or you can just output, anonymized counts of people, activity. You can create active zones, and so you can get alerts when people enter, when people leave, when certain numbers of people enter or certain numbers of people leave, when vehicles enter and leave. And so we're just exploring some of those deeper video analytics use cases, because in some environments, being able to anonymize the video in real time and rebroadcast it suddenly means you can unlock a lot more value in what historically has been video that's not allowed out of the security center. And so when marketing and operations and finance go and knock on the SOC door and say, no, go and watch the video, and they're kind of like,
No.
You know, over my dead body, will you be entering this build? And so actually we can get the video feeds out of there for them, and also, excuse me, provide a range of useful data on top. We at the moment we are planning to add that into the SaaS product so that you can just add a feed and have a play with it. At the moment, that's deployed into private environments, because as soon as you have lots of video streams running,
it's very intense. Yeah.
right. So
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, since we are on Twitch, it's an awesome use case that comes to mind. You know, there's a lot of live video broadcasters who are going to take their cameras out into the world and show off what their daily life is like. It'd be really cool if, you know, you could say, hey, blur everyone else except for me. Like, I know it's fairly popular in the US with vlogging and all of that. I know the EU has pretty strict rules around that, where you do have to take consent of everyone who is who is in the frame, basically. So like that's another like just awesome use case that's surprisingly relevant.
It's interesting actually that when we were thinking about this podcast, I was thinking, because there's quite a long list of other use cases that we don't cater for, where actually the APIs would be very valuable for people in those spaces, and that's certainly one of them. So we get quite a lot of what I would call citizen journalists. We have quite a few people anonymizing streams from Twitch and other kind of live streaming applications. And so I think on the more kind of, I guess slightly more on the consumer side, actually, there are a bunch of really interesting applications where through usage of the APIs, it would be very easy to just open up some new environments for video, actually. And so, yeah, as I say, we're seeing a growth in kind of YouTubers, citizen journalists, a few people on some of the streaming channels who are effectively using the application to anonymize, mostly public in the background, actually. So when they're out on the streets doing a broadcast, they've got the so distracting.
Here, let me join you. Here you go.
Did not.
Yeah, so they're anonymizing the public in the background, but actually they're keeping whoever's presenting in shot, and they can do that very easily. And it allows them to, it also allows them. There's a strange quirk, which is if you can do a really good job of protecting and anonymizing the footage, it gives you more freedom to capture more stuff.
Yeah.
Because the risks of doing it are a lot lower, and so you can take it into different environments. You can take it to some environments you wouldn't normally actually. So it does. So it kind of does inversely. It kind of counterintuitively opens up more opportunities actually.
I could see that with a lot of, for example, like you were talking about the vloggers, like travel vloggers, that may not know what the regulations are in different countries, just automatically using it just to be on the safe side, make sure that faces are blurred when you don't know if it's a law or not.
Yeah. So let me say if I give, let's just show you as an example. If I share,
so could you blur us?
I could, yeah. So if I share my screen,
Okay.
So what we have here is our SaaS application. So this is Secure Redact. I've effectively logged in, and so once you come in here, you can see I've got kind of a drawer of all the videos that I've uploaded. What you can do, you've basically got 3 core ways to get a video into the system. You can click the upload button, and then you can access local network drives, find a file, upload it, say what you want to anonymize, and then you upload. What the system then does is it goes away, processes those videos in the background. It goes through every single frame in the video, and as I say, it basically draws an orange box around anything it thinks the user may want to anonymize in the video. So in this instance, it's drawn a box around all the faces. Let's just watch through. Log in. Should have probably logged in to start with, shouldn't I? There we go.
How long does it usually take to do this throughout a full video? You talk about it doing it in every frame.
Yeah, so it's faster than real time. The normal product, the standard product is just set up to be faster than real time.
Mm-hmm.
For our use cases, most people are are pretty happy to upload video, wait for it to be processed, get an alert, and then when it's ready, they will go in and review the video.
Right.
We have some users who are processing a very high volume and they want it processed quickly, and then we can provide them a bit more compute in the background. But for most people, so if you upload a 30-minute video, it take around 20 minutes to process, basically. But obviously, all you need to do is upload it. You can go away, make a cup of tea, do something, and then when it's ready, you can come in and watch the video. And then effectively what you do is you come through, you just mute that. You come through and then you see what we've effectively done is drawn a box around all faces in the video. And then if all you wanted to do was anonymize those, you can preview what the blur looks like. You could watch it, review it all back. And then if you were happy, you could just click redact and download it. It's as simple as that, basically. To show you how it works on some different types of footage. Let's have a look. So your use case earlier, I should point out that's my wife and my children, so don't worry. But for example, if I was doing some citizen journalism, say I wanted to be able to see my son but nobody else, I could effectively come in, select his track. I've unredacted him. I could then preview everything else. And again, and so if he was, I could then very, very quickly just take the footage I've taken, unredact him, redact everybody else in the scene. And again, that's then, ready to be used, downloaded as kind of needs to be, really. I re-redact him. Oop. The other thing you can do is you can obviously switch into full resolution. Excuse me. And then to my point earlier, there's also additional items that people tend to want to redact in these videos. Let's just get rid of this 1 second. So if I come into the more advanced tracking area, say for whatever reason we want to anonymize my daughter's, I don't know what that is, but bubble tea, I can draw a box around there. I can then track that forward in the video. And then in real time, as I'm kind of going through frame by frame, you can see that's automatically tracking a drink. There we go. And then just it's going off shot, I can save that. I can then also name that as an entity on here that I've just added as a track. And then you can see going through the video, we now have that basically annotated and tracked. And again, I can then go in and unredact or redact that as I need to, or as I see fit, really. Excuse me.
So I have a question about that. So say you had a video and you needed to take out anybody that had particular brands, like we'll say Starbucks for a second, because we're Seattle, or at least I'm Seattle. I'm in the minority here today. But so would you be able to go through and would it recognize a logo if you flagged it one time? Would it recognize the same item if other people were holding it?
So at the moment, you can do what I just did then, which is draw a box around that so I can remove the underground logo. We're just in the process of adding what we call an entity builder, which will allow you to basically build some classifiers on the fly in the system. And then you would be able to do what you've just suggested.
Very cool.
Because what happens a lot with, excuse me, the use case we get a lot is with case files, where there may be 10 videos in a specific case file, and you may want to anonymize the same thing in all of them. And so there's therefore some benefit in doing it in one of them and being able to find it in the others as well. Does that make sense?
That does. That is really cool.
The other
I was
thing,
only half thinking that it might do that. That's impressive.
Yeah, so because we're kind of balancing, because we spend, so there are some entities in the video that all users have to redact all of the time, like faces and number plates. And so we spend a long time building really good detectors for those things. Sorry, 1 second. Because we know that from a workflow point of view, we save most time if we can find all that data to start with, and then the end user just unredacts the one or two people they need to see. And so the time saving is in finding everything, and then you spend time just unredacting a bit.
Mhm.
But the use case you've mentioned, which is logos, insignia, and things, it tends to be only a small number of the possible ones that need to be redacted. And therefore, it doesn't necessarily make sense to put detectors in to find all the logos in a scene, for example, because it would find lots in here. And so what we're trying to do is just build really good on-the-fly tools so that you as an end user can say, actually, just find me all instances of the underground logo or whatever the clothing logo is that you want to see. Does that make sense?
That does.
Excuse me. Slightly different, to the point earlier, slightly different angle, CCTV, fixed camera inside. Go back in again. You can switch to full resolution mode. If you want to review in detail, you can zoom into these specific individuals. You can then also play the video back in Zoom. So if you wanted to do some fine grain tracking and things, you can do that in there as well, actually. So even the people up here, look, think about think about the kind of complexity of detection in some of these environments where you have quite a few small number of pixels and people moving around. The other thing to probably say is we don't just do face detection. There is body detection, there's head detection, there's face detection going on here, which gives you a much better chance of finding the right artifacts, especially in really variable video.
Right.
And then I guess the other use case we see quite a lot is on kind of highways data. Let's just reload that.
Lots of license plates.
Yeah, exactly.
And faces.
And faces, yeah, exactly. Excuse me. And again, you can do the same thing if you wanted to. If you wanted to anonymize this white car, for example, just draw a box around, you can track it forwards, and then we can track the white car through the video out as well. So effectively, as I say, we've got a good balance of automation and also some quite fun editing tools that everybody can use to basically make sure they get the best of everything. Let's just pause this, and then you've got a bunch of usual kind of video tools here. You can jump to specific frames. You can speed the video up. Lots of different environments. And so just basically to give you a bit of a flavor of the kind of the different types of footage, all the way through to I won't play this video because not very nice things happen, but very low light environments, and also all the way through to kind of very shaky body worn camera footage. And again, not the nicest video to show you, but people shaking and jumping around, and it becomes quite tricky to make sure that you've got systems that perform across all those different use cases, basically. Petrol stations as well. Whoop. Hey.
I imagine there's probably not very many body-worn camera examples that you could provide that would not have not nice things in them.
Yes, that's probably quite true, actually.
To put it nicely, they won't be TOS compatible.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so I won't show those. Let me just delete this part. And then the other thing to show you is basically underneath. So for some use cases, there's quite a straightforward use case, which is find everything, de-anonymize the specific person, and move on. For others, we have a lot more detail on all the different tracks that we've generated underneath the video. And so again, this is quite a nice way of doing some triage on where specific people come in and out of the video and disappear. And then we also have, let's move this down a bit. We also have the audio track here underneath. And so I don't know if you can hear the audio or not when I'm playing it, but we effectively have some keyboard shortcuts and keys that you can hold down and use to beep out different sections of the audio. And so can you guys hear the audio?
On and off, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you imagine, basically these orange bars are where it's then muted out, but you can then invert it, and then when you play it, all you will hear is the bits that have been muted out, basically. And so if you're going through a piece of video to remove names, numbers, profanities, etc., once you've inverted the audio, it's then very easy just to listen to those specific sections. And then again, you can get those out through the application as well.
That's really interesting.
So that's kind of that's the more detailed workflow you could use on the API, where you could pass images and videos in. You can open them up in the application. User can go through this workflow, and then they can click redact, or you can download. On the API itself, so if for example you were running, I don't know, if you were running a claims management system for an insurance company, and you were processing videos of personal injury and accidents. So say, I don't know, say somebody has a fall in the middle of this shopping center here. And that video is sat in your claims management system. You could very easily add a button in there that says redact. You can click the redact button, and you could use the API to log in the account, log in the user, and pass the video across to Secure Redact. Video would then be processed in Secure Redact. You could then request from the API status. So on your claims management system, you could show the user that the video was being processed. You could tell them when it was ready for review. They could then click review. You could then open up the Secure Redact browser page. They would then go through the workflow to review and edit. And then rather than redact, they could just effectively save it. And that would then push the video back to the claims management system again. And so if you were trying to design something around an existing workflow, the API should give you a really good way of just integrating that into where the video is currently stored and how it's currently used, basically.
So,
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess we should go talk to StreamYard and see if we can make it happen in this app.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah,
That's an idea.
That's a very good idea. Actually, we've had a few people come to us actually and ask about selectively anonymizing things in video calls actually. And so I think there are probably some interesting use cases where there are bits of data, especially because everyone records these things like this one. There's probably bits of data or specific individuals that you'd want to selectively remove from the channel before it's recorded. And if you were running the platform, it'd be very easy for you to put that capability into the platform to either do it. You could either do it now. We could either set some settings now whilst we're on the call live, or you could do it retrospectively once the videos have been saved off, and then you can have a workflow to go and edit them, basically.
absolutely.
But we're trying to make the tools as easy to use as possible for non-technical people. And so, as you can see when I was demoing it, you can kind of access them at a pretty high level, which a lot of our private sector customers do when they have to deal with kind of data subject access requests and freedom of information requests. And so everything's selected. You can de-anonymize someone, you can use the video. And then for some of the public safety use cases where they need to be 100% sure that everything is 100% accurate and they've got a lot of additional requirements, they can drill in to some of the more advanced functionality to make sure that happens as well, basically.
You know what? Actually, what this reminds me of. To anyone in the audience and anyone in my panel who's played the video game Watch Dogs and any of its contemporaries, essentially it's an arcadey hacking style game, and one of the key things is whenever you kind of hack into a CCTV camera, your player is just blurred out. And so, like, I'm not saying someone should go and build it, but we're living in the future. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I'll have to go and have a play with that. That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, avoid the third game, but I'm pretty sure someone from Ubisoft's going to come and smack me now.
I'm going to run your crab raid suggestion from earlier, actually.
Yeah.
We could use Secure Redact once this video is complete. We could go back and we could just redact that out.
Let's do it. Yeah, to everyone watching, if you want to see a demo of Secure Redact on this video, go check out the VOD on YouTube.
We were. I was mentioning earlier that we're exhibiting at a big security trade show next week in Las Vegas, and as part of the exhibition, we have our live video anonymization product. We usually put it live on the exhibition stand, so we have a big camera, and we have beat the blur. So anyone who can effectively appear, who manages to appear on the screen unblurred, has beaten our algorithm, and then they win a prize. And people just go crazy dancing in front of the camera. It's quite amazing. And so I was just saying that demonstration works really well, but we're trying to do a demo for the audio side as well, and we were struggling to find good, understandable rights, music that we can use. And so we had a suggestion that Crab Rave might be a good one as a recognizable tune that we could play around with. So we shall see. But the Beat the Blur is it's a great kind of demonstration of product capability, because people end up doing cartwheels and somersaults and dancing around, and mostly get quite annoyed that they can't beat the algorithm of the trick. And it's kind of like the way it was designed, unfortunately.
It's a good conversation starter, isn't it?
It is. It is for sure.
Well, you have a good product when people are trying to beat the blur and think that they're being tricked by it.
Yes, definitely.
And that's just how the product works.
That's very true. I do have a little video. Excuse me. I do have a little video demo of the live video analytics, actually, if it's useful to see.
Sure.
So let me just.
While you're pulling that up, so I know earlier you were talking about different percentages, and I know Shardul was talking about it's pretty easy to get things to 85%, and that you guys were talking about even 99% can throw a bunch of errors. So what kind of percentage of accuracy does Secure Redact have?
So on our test data, which we think is pretty representative, we're about 99.34%, I think, on precision.
Wow.
Which sounds good, but but that still does mean that we miss some frames, basically, which is why you then still need a really good application for review and editing on top. And it does depend a lot. And so if it's a fixed camera, static camera CCTV into a decent scene, it's actually a lot higher. If it's body worn in low lights, then there's going to be some bits that you need to fill in. That's just good to know, because it's good for expectation setting.
Yeah.
And we still do find lots of edge cases where it's still quite tricky. And so part of our job is just making sure that working with customers to highlight when those edge cases pop up, to understand them, and then we basically have to run around and try and find, or even a lot of the time we'll go out and shoot our own kind of proxy data that kind of matches as close as it can. So we kind of exist in two domains, really. One around kind of creating data as close to those cases as we possibly can to add to our training data sets. The other area is we add a lot of transformations and augmentations to the training data. So there's a lot of things that we can synthetically do to all our existing data to simulate all the different types of cameras, environments, and things, just to try and make the models as robust as possible. And from a business point of view, we've kind of split the development team into, we have an application and systems engineering team, and we have an ML science team. And the ML science team basically provide all the models that underpin the application. And so to start with, we were very much on the accuracy and quality of the product is all down to the quality and accuracy of the models. Now we're in a world actually where the models are in a really good state, but actually the fact that we own the models means that we can build really cool things into the application to make use of our kind of uncertainties and confidence scores, and we can actually now augment the models themselves. And so what we really care about is how much manual time does somebody still have to take to get a video to the point where they're 100% happy with it. And reducing that time is as much a job for the systems and application team as it is for the ML team. Yeah, So moving, motion artifacts are tricky. Rolling shutter artifacts are tricky. Different lens types, shapes are tricky. Dynamic range is tricky. Noise is tricky. It's all quite tricky. And so we've built a really good set of transformations actually that can get us quite a long way there. But actually, in a lot of instances, there's no real substitute for just going out with an SLR camera and 3 different body-worn cameras and a drone and CCTV. and where customers are happy to share data with explicit consent, then we can tune models on that. But a lot of the time, as you will imagine, a lot of the customer data is quite sensitive, and so they don't let us, and therefore we do have to go out and try and create our own, basically. Yeah, so rolling shutter artifacts on a moving camera in low light with lots of noise, in a lot of the frames, what's funny is in a lot of the frames, people's heads will just melt. And so you could argue that
self-redacting cameras.
So, in a lot of instances, you could argue that you don't actually need, on that specific face in that specific frame doesn't actually need anonymizing. But the challenge is when you watch the video back, it looks like you've missed a frame. And so a lot of the public safety customers take a much higher threshold and will want to pick all that up. And so actually, you're then in a very strange position where you're not teaching a model to recognize a head or a face. You're kind of teaching a model to understand all the weird artifacts that can occur in these video and image pipelines, and then how to thread them all together into tracks. And so it does become a slightly trickier problem, actually. So to the point at the beginning, yes, there are lots of good face detectors, but they're not going to work too well in real security footage because of all these weird use cases and edge cases, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about transformations for a second there, and I kind of want to go back to that and maybe leverage some of the hype around generative AI right now. Are you planning or currently using Gen AI as a source of, let's say, embellishments on your video?
We have tested it quite a few times. It's certainly getting better. We still see quite a lot of domain shift if you use the synthetic images, because we've also played around with some of the gaming engines, and so I think as that gets better. So what's great is having control over angles, position, lighting, subjects, movement, all those things. And so being able to do that with more realistic outputs will really help with the model tuning, basically. Because where we are now is we have a very good pipeline that identifies kind of edge cases and content that we don't already have well covered in our training data set. Because effectively what we actually want is a large number of a small number of frames that are different, not a large number of the same thing. And the challenge with a lot of security footage is if it's a CCTV camera, it's just the same thing. And so it will change slightly over the period of the day and the week, but actually the scene doesn't change. And so what you actually need is a small number of frames from a very large number of cameras. The body-worn camera stuff's a bit different because it's just it's everything basically, and then dash cam. But I think, so to answer your question, Shardul, I think it's something that will become better and more useful to us over time. At the moment, we're still finding that there's quite a lot of shortfalls in it, basically.
Well, continuing that, let me turn that question on its head. You've got such an amazing repository of video footage from a variety of cameras and a variety of scenes. Do you think you could build a compelling generative AI model that can make like really hyper accurate body cam footage?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. Not one we've considered today. So thank you.
Excellent.
That is a good question. I think as we start to understand a lot more about the artifacts and edge cases in here, I think the answer is probably going to be yes. I wonder what the magic number is for the amount of body-worn camera footage you need. The variability is so much higher than CCTV.
Yeah.
And so I think, creating some motion artifacts in something that looks like a body-worn camera, fine, but actually you need that plus the strange movement in the scene. and the strange movement and the angles. And you also have weird kind of close-up far away going on as well, because you end up confronting someone very closely and then there's 20 people in the background. And so but you're right, there is not much of that data around if you wanted to just pick something off the shelf and tune it, for example. And you're also right that it's not really got into the consumer sphere yet, and so most body-worn cameras are on security guards or policemen, and so the footage tends to be of a specific ilk.
Mhm.
Oh, you know what would be awesome? And I mean, sorry to everyone who's planning to go diving, but you have a little 360 cam on you as you go diving, and you just, I mean, it hasn't come into the consumer sphere, obviously, but imagine if you could, from that source material, go and say, hey, throw in a great white shark in there and see how it goes. And then you pretend to swim away scared, but you're fine. and now we're in the realm of, oh shit, I just confronted a shark.
I think you need to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, hey, for the most part, I'm crossing my fingers because the video models, the video Gen AI models, still don't understand physics. So I think we'll be safe for now.
Yeah, so that's probably quite true.
Yeah.
but yeah, sure.
No, go ahead. You're good.
The challenge with that would also be prompting those models, I think, because you would have to manually come up with all the scenarios for the scene, the people, the activity, the movement, and being able to cover enough representative ground to do that would take some thought, I think.
Write a small novel, dump it into a model, and expect a decent movie to come out.
I think there's definitely a case for needing a smaller amount of reel. And so, we find a new edge case, I don't know, whatever it is, and we only need a small amount of real footage, but then we can augment it to a much bigger amount of synthetic. I think I can definitely see that helping us out quite a lot, actually.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of augmentation of the training data already. Where you draw the line on what's generative and what's not, it's quite tricky. So.
If anybody is just joining us, today we are talking with Simon and Guy from Pimloc. They are demonstrating their Secure Redact platform, which helps you make video or picture or audio anonymous in order to help protect personally identifiable information. So it can redact faces, heads. We just saw in a little bit of a demo, it can redact a drink container as you're going through a video. So really, really cool product. So if anybody is joining us, feel free to ask our experts any questions you might have, and we're just having a really great discussion.
Cool. So I was for those who just joined, I did a little demo about 5 minutes ago, but I was going to show I've got a video of our live video anonymization pipeline running, which I thought I could show just to show you what that does. And so, previously I was explaining we kind of operate in two domains, one around retrospective anonymization of video files, and then the other one is in real time on live video broadcasts as well, where you can get the video feed and anonymize and rebroadcast it with some analytics. So if I just found a video, if I share my screen. If I play this through, so you can basically come in, you can add video streams to the application. You can add, however many streams you want to add, and then by default, you've got the video stream in front of you with everybody's faces anonymized. Excuse me. You can also draw specific zones. So if it's a fixed camera and there's maybe a sensitive area in the corner of the office or something, you can then excuse me, draw a specific redaction zone. You can add that in, and then that area will be anonymized from the footage for the entirety of the video as well. The other thing you can do, so I guess more kind of operations use cases, you can get the anonymized feed out. Again, you can draw some zones, you can set density, you can also set the trigger for when you want to get a live alert, and then the system will basically monitor the people going in and out of that zone and then send you an alert when it gets too busy. We've got some use cases for that being run around queuing and also monitoring of certain environments. Oh, we've got audio stuff there as well. Interesting. Cool. Oop. And we also got vehicle counting, people counting. Excuse me. and a bunch of other analytics as well we can add in, but they're not in the API yet. But if you had a need for them, we could add them in pretty quickly. So at the moment, the APIs are all geared up around the video, image and video files. We've done a couple of simple integrations to some of the video management system providers for live video. So you can get live video out of a Cisco Meraki camera and anonymize to back out of our system. We're about to do the same with one of the big VMS partners as well. So we will make those APIs public soon. But if you have got a need for being able to take a live video feed, anonymize it, and then rebroadcast it somewhere, just get in contact and we can hook you up, basically.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you know, I'm just thinking of all the ways this could be applicable now, and I'm I'm having a bit of a moment. Like, oh wow, we can put it everywhere. It can go everywhere.
I just wanted to think. We had a before the call. We had a little think about some of the other use cases that could be interesting. So I just share my. Let me just go through some of them. So one area that we've had some people come to us about that we've been talking about is around kind of just consumer imaging applications, actually. So as a parent, not wanting to share too many family shots on social media channels with my kids in, but actually being able to just automatically anonymize the kids out and share them makes life so much easier. And that's not something we've implemented because we don't own a social media network. But if someone wanted to build an application or a tool or a plugin for that using the APIs, that's something that's there and would work pretty well, I think. I think there's probably a bunch of kind of parenting applications where you could protect the data of your children better. That could have some quite good utility to it, I think.
Not even your own child's, even other children that would be in videos with them. My stepson wrestles in high school. So being able to share videos where people are still able to see him do his thing, but doesn't necessarily show all of the kids on the sidelines, doesn't necessarily expose their privacy. Yeah,
we're finding a lot of schools and education establishments in the US actually coming to us. There's the FERPA and COPPA legislation, which I think is federal, and there's a lot of state by state legislation being passed now as well, where parents basically can ask the school for footage of their children, and then they're obliged to anonymize it and anonymize everybody else out and send it back to them. And we've also had some instances, as you rightly say, Tina, where little Johnny might be in the school Christmas play, but little Johnny's parents can't have the video because little Terry's parents said that they don't want him in the video. So being able to just go in and say, okay, remove Terry and keep John in means that everyone can have the benefit of those videos quite nicely, actually. But I think that whole area of giving people the tools to just choose who they can anonymize out of their content before they share it means actually you're just freer to share a lot more content. Because most people will just not post the picture because it's got the kids in it. Whereas actually, if they could just anonymize the kids, they could do that. I think I was reading last week that a lot of the teenagers are now putting their hands in front of their faces when they're having the photos taken. People are used to sticking emojis on stuff, which you can do. And so if it's an image, it's pretty easy to do yourself. If it's a video, it just becomes a bit trickier. And so having some fun tools that you can use to do on video is a good thing, I think. The other area was I guess the citizen journalism one we spoke about earlier, where I think it would be pretty easy to pick up the APIs and build some tools for more prosumer type content creators, which again isn't something that we do. Video calls, certainly. People who are providing infrastructure or maybe some of those services. And then there's a long list of varieties of content management systems where they're increasingly holding more and more video. So digital evidence management systems, freedom of information management systems, privacy management systems, video management systems, claims management systems, even some of the data annotation systems. So the platforms where people are bringing in their images and videos to annotate to build models, there's a benefit to being able to anonymize those for longer term storage as well, I think. Healthcare record systems. So we're starting to see a lot of interest on the healthcare side. There are a lot more video being captured in clinics, in hospitals, all the way through to certain types of clinical trials as well, now being videoed. And again, not our kind of core domain area, but actually we've got really good, APIs now that mean we could plug that capability into other people's systems pretty easily. And then probably the last area is around TV production. So I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in the UK, a lot of the news programs are now anonymizing the public out of all news broadcasts. So we're starting to see a lot of the newsrooms picking up product to be able to more quickly anonymize stuff out of their video broadcasts as well, actually. And those guys have quite specific TV production applications that they use. And so being able to integrate those in, support the right formats and stuff is probably a good thing. And then probably hundreds of thousands that we haven't even thought of.
What would you say is one of the most interesting use cases? Obviously not bringing up who the customer was if you're not able to give that information. But what's a really interesting use case that you've seen over the course of Secure Redact being around?
So because we operate in both dimensions, and so we have citizens who can go to a business or even a government, organization and say, can you give me the data you have of me? And we provide an application that gives transparency for them to give them the data. We also have a use case where individuals on the ground who are protesting, who want to tell an accurate view of what's actually happening, can anonymize themselves and others out of the footage to keep themselves safe, but then still share video footage of what's happening on the ground. And so that side from the kind of citizen journalism back out is quite an interesting use case, actually. We've had some quite strange ones. So we had a company that surveys the outside of buildings using drones, and whenever any of the residents saw the drones, they would flash it. So that was an interesting.
I was waiting for something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, and actually, even with it's surprising how much nudity probably needs anonymizing out of some videos. Even in some of the public safety use cases, actually, where you may need to anonymize the personal data, but also lots of sensitive information as well. And so we do find that there's probably as much time spent removing sensitive information sometimes as there is on the kind of the privacy side, interestingly. And I think with the schools, a lot of it is removing specific images and videos of children on the footage, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're probably the quirkier ones, I would say. I think the rest of them are quite well understood use cases for basically anonymizing video, because either it needs to be shared and used. So we've had some use cases where it's less about responding to a freedom of information request. It's much more about actually we as a business want to share all of these medical images that we have, but in order to do so, we need to anonymize them properly so that other people can see them and access them. And so there is kind of a collaboration and sharing point to it as well, I think. We in the office we've anonymized lots of famous bits of art, basically, because it's on topic and it looks quite nice. So we've got various pictures of the Beatles and people around the office all kind of with their faces blurred out, which looks quite cool.
I guess the biggest question now is, does the anonymized Mona Lisa still follow you around the room?
Very good question.
Let's try that one out.
I think it depends what time of the day it is, I think. The other interesting area that we've filed a patent for, and we're in the process of deploying is what they call pseudonymization, not anonymization. And so the difference is, if something is anonymized, you can't get it back. And so for a bunch of the privacy regulations, compliance, and our cases for video files, it has to be anonymized. So there's no way of getting the data back again. But there are some use cases where you could make a case that if you could pseudonymize the video, i.e. anonymize everything by default, but where there was the right process and warrant tree, decrypt specific individuals in the video. So for example, I will take a video in a busy public space. By default, everybody's anonymized. But if someone does something bad and I get a warrant and approval, I can then decrypt that specific individual and he will be visible in the video, but no one else will be. And that's definitely not the same solution as anonymizing the footage, but it does mean that the proportionality is better. And so for some public safety use cases, you could say, well, actually, if there is a threat to life or something, you could argue that the proportionality is better to do that in that environment and still protect all the other data. Because a lot of the time you're looking for one individual, but in order to find them, you have to basically suck in data for another, hundreds or thousands of people. But actually, if you can protect those to start with, that's another. And that's not a fully baked product yet, but it's an area that we are looking at because we think it's interesting, and we're getting counsel on it from various privacy bodies as well. But we think it could be an interesting solution actually, because it allows you to do security and privacy together rather than having to do one or the other, basically.
Yeah, I to oversimplify it, but like it's basically DRM for faces. But obviously that's oversimplifying it, right? Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
Nuki, we at the moment we only do images, video, and audio. We have started to get requests for documents, but there are lots of other good companies that do document redaction as well. And so I think what we're probably just looking, so if somebody needed all of those things together, we'd probably just bring one of those partner organizations alongside to be able to do both. Because whilst there is benefit from having all the capability in, maybe from one supplier, the workflow for images and videos is very different than it is for documents. And so you would end up with two different workflows anyway, I think. But we do know a range of partners that we could support.
Good answer. So for any viewers now or in the future that may want to go on and set up an account and demo out the product, I know we have a link that I'm going to go ahead and share to sign up so that they can go ahead and do that. Is there anything about the process of signing up or getting started that's not explicitly clear that you would want to walk through?
Hopefully not. if somebody finds out that's not the case, please tell us. You can go online. We will ask for your email address, a few questions. Then you will basically be set up with an account. You will verify the account, and then you are free to upload up to 20 minutes of video for free every month and use the product. So that should be quite straightforward. When you sign up, you can choose whether you want to sign up to the UK or the US instance. So if you're in the US, you're going to want to use the US instance so the data stays sovereign in the US. If you're in Europe, choose the UK one. We've got all the documentation about how we process your data, system accuracy on the website as well, so you can go and see that. But no, it should be quite straightforward. We've got a range of video tutorials, FAQs, how-tos on the site. But if you've got any questions, if you just email us at info@secureredact.co.uk, we can respond to you pretty quickly. All the API documentation is public online as well. So there's a link there to our Postman site and the SDK site as well. So depending on which way you want to interact with it, that you can just find off our website address, which has gone in there. You can sign up for API credentials directly online through the SaaS product as well. There's a good tutorial of how to do that. Should be able to get it set up and running, get images and videos going in and out again. And again, there's some contact details there if you want to get in contact with us. I guess the other thing to say is you could also, depending on your preference, there's also an opportunity to run the system in private cloud environment as well. And so, some customers with very sensitive data may take a view that they want to run this in a private cloud environment, and so we can also deploy that way as well.
Is that a standard method of deployment for you guys, or is that a separate process that you just do as a one-off basis?
The latter at the moment.
Okay.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's
so.
Yeah, this is a wonderful product, and thank you for the amazing demos. Those are quite informative. Yeah. We should. Hey, we're AWS. We should look at integrating Pimloc into Chime. For those of you who don't know, Chime is the SDK behind several video conferencing solutions, including our own Amazon Chime. And I get, like, we have a recording feature. Why not also have a redact feature? So individual users can go in and say, hey, I consent or I don't consent to be in the recording, and then they can automatically be. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to go write a PR FAQ on that right now.
Or if we're doing a workshop or something and we need to redact out specific information.
Yep.
That's right. Things on whiteboards, or even maybe sensitive stuff in presentations that get shown actually accidentally. Yeah, I imagine there's lots of video calls where people show presentations of confidential material that then ends up in a recording somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
We might need to work on this, Shardul.
Yeah. There's a PR FAQ being written right now. Don't worry.
Yeah.
About it.
It's going in our heads.
Wonderful. And that's everyone. That's how a new feature is launched at AWS. Up live on camera. Yeah, no.
We'll ship it in a week.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And since we still do have a little bit of time left, I was hoping you guys might be willing or able to speak a little bit to the architecture. What types of things did you consider when you were building this? How did you make some of the trade-offs in different decisions that you made?
Yeah, so there's now a lot more processing power in the browser and the device itself. And so trying to work out which workloads we push to the back end of the system to process in AWS, what we can process on the front end on the device. And then when we go backwards and forwards, has been quite fun actually. And so quite a lot. So a lot of the all of the upfront detection tracking work we push out to GPU in AWS because it's faster, it's more efficient, and we've built a lot of auto scaling in as well. And so as more users come into the system, we auto scale instances in the background. So that we can cope with the demand, basically. And then most importantly, for us, maybe not for you, it comes back down again as well. But it kind of, but that process has been working really well. And I'd say the support on the InfoSec side, on the AWS side, has been very helpful as well. In the early stages, we took a view to try and not put too many native solutions in if we could help it. But actually, as we've gone deeper and deeper into the security side, we've ended up doing that actually for good reason. And actually, that's now pretty secure. We're going through we're in our audit window for SOC 2 at the moment actually. But you guys have helped us out with that quite a lot actually. And then, one of the big things we have to manage is we've got processing going on the back end. We've got a video being displayed on the front end. We've got an overlay of boxes and detections, and we need the whole thing to be frame accurate and playing in real time. And so making sure that we can manage the interplay between the front end and the back end and make sure the system's all running has taken quite a lot of time actually. And so we now have a lot of checks in the system to make sure that the frames are accurate and the boxes are in the right place and they're not moved and they're not slightly offset, so that we can check the video that gets uploaded against the one that's previewed and watched against the one that's created and downloaded, so that you can be sure what you see in the screen is also what you get to be downloaded. And that's been a bit of a journey, to be honest. Yeah, and also just we've recently rebuilt our video pipeline and the audio one to give us more flexibility in the browser, to be able to do things faster and more accurately. And I would say it's an ongoing challenge, but it's it's getting. I think we're getting there now. Actually, we now have a really good understanding of what the expert user requirements are, and we've kind of architected the system now to be able to support that properly. And also now the speed for new feature iterations a lot faster. We can add new features much faster into the product. We can deploy all the way through. The ML guys can now push models through the system. And so all that kind of really valuable infrastructure work that's hard to do at the beginning, we're now kind of, doing really well actually. And I think that's going to make a big difference for us this year. And so time syncing boxes and video is one thing. Time syncing audio time to the video time back to the final video is nothing short of a headache actually. But that now works really well. And so all those thoughts have been maturing a lot actually. And InfoSec is now, as we start to onboard lots more bigger customers, we've always had privacy and security at the heart of the business, but actually we've now got a lot more on the security provision for the product itself as well. So, and again, you guys have been a big help on making sure that we've got the right setup there.
Simon, if you don't mind, in bringing a more forward-looking, a more sustainable view to this conversation, ARM is all the rage once again. After having taken over all of our phones, it's now coming for laptops and desktops. What can you tell us? Like, do you use ARM processors in the cloud? Are you considering, especially now that a lot of ARM chips have these kind of neural engines on device, have you maybe considered, we can push bits and pieces of our model out to the edge into the browser, saying, cool, it's like a 5-second video, no problem, let's just do it on your device. We don't even have to bring it into our systems. Have you considered that? Have you, what's the path forward, if you don't mind me asking, from a sustainable standpoint?
No, it's funny. When we set the business up, we had a hypothesis that Edge was going to be where it was at. And so we got the whole system to run on an ARM at the beginning. And then everyone would say, that's great. And then we're like, where's the data? They'd be like, it's in the cloud. And so we're like, okay. And so we basically, and it was just far too early. And so we then put everything firmly in the cloud. And now we're slowly bringing bits out to the browser. And I can certainly see a world where actually you can start to push some stuff out to the camera nodes as well, basically. And so, a world where either you have a camera that just takes in video and outputs analytics, or just takes in video and outputs pseudonymized video that can then be decrypted later, I think is an interesting use case, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, if like once you get the patent and the algorithm all sorted out, you can even push that out to FPGAs, so it's incredibly efficient on device. Just like comes out pre-pseudonymized, and yeah, that's I guess that's the future, huh?
Because the challenge is if you anonymize everything at source,
You've lost that data.
Yeah, and so you can't. So that only does. So it doesn't tick the security box basically, because you can't then go back and say that bad thing that happened. The data's not there, and so that I think there are and will be use cases for that sort of anonymized analytic application in certain environments. But actually, if you can do the security and the video together, then I think that's a really interesting use case for us to explore in the future. Actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It also means you've just, you've got the privacy layer built. And so privacy is kind of default in the video. And then on top of it, you can then selectively give access to the video layer for different other applications. And even selectively, so this video, this person or entity, we've got permission to let it access this API for this other service, for example. But nothing else can. And then you can build a really interesting system then that can give you selective access into different bits of video in that. And so, yeah, so that's definitely very interesting, an area that we're thinking about. But I think that's a bit further in the future for now.
Yeah.
But we've certainly pushed a lot of processing back to browser. And quite a lot of it now runs pretty well on CPU. But if you've got an hour's higher resolution 4K video with 300 people in scene, you're going to need quite a lot of GPUs to get through it. So you don't need to worry.
That's entirely fair. Following on the edge conversation, I always like to introduce this, but not introduce this, but bring it up because it's always fun to talk about. In the future, if you see yourself releasing CCTV devices or so on, or becoming a primary manufacturer or a partner of a body cam maker, would it make sense to start pushing federated learning driven models that don't just learn in the cloud, but each individual device can pseudonymize based on its own learnings? So let's say, there's a camera that's kind of permanently deployed in, I don't know, somewhere where it's always snowy. Then that device gets really good at pseudonymizing snow-affected frames, and the global model also learns, hey, we know what snow looks like now. We can fix that, and extending that over what's potentially 45 billion camera-equipped devices in 2022. That number's probably higher now. So, has that come up in conversation, or have I just ruined some very secretive internal meetings that were obviously
So I'd say, firstly, I don't think we're planning to launch a CCTV camera.
Okay, there we
go. So I think we are. There's enough challenge on the software side for us, and actually, we've kind of set the task of being interoperable. And so if we can get data in from any device that's capturing, process it and pass it back, that's a very good thing for us.
Yeah.
And so we've got no intention of starting to get into the capture side of things. Having said that, pushing some of our capabilities closer to the camera head is definitely a good thing to do. Federated learning is a very interesting area. The challenge that we would have is what we care about is the misdetections. And so, yes, federated learning, but we're gonna need whoever it is on the other side to go annotate a load of stuff for us. And then actually a lot of the stuff that's in there, there's only going to be a small amount of the data that's actually useful to the model.
Yeah.
And so we could harvest that, but it would still need some. And the other thing that we're quite particular about annotation, because the precision of the annotation itself has quite a big bearing. But yes, that is definitely something that would. There's a big uplift there because you suddenly get value. You suddenly get access to a much bigger pool of data. The challenge is the annotation, the quality of the annotation that you get access to, and whether that adds up.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It's wonderful that y'all even thinking of it. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because it's a conversation I love to bring up with ML oriented partners and companies. Is, hey, have you considered pushing it out to the edge? Because it's always, I don't want to say easy. It's never easy, but it's always convenient to do it all in a giant compute cluster in your data center somewhere. But the challenge and the benefits that come with federated learning, especially in the space of privacy and security, are vast. And so, like, I feel like I have to bring it up.
Yeah, no, it's and it's a slightly for some of our customers, it's a slightly different domain to normal federated learning because I don't think they even have consent to use the data either.
Right.
And so there would probably be a privacy question on their side also about whether they could even allow someone to do federated learning on it actually. Yeah. But there certainly would be other domains where that would be plausible. Then the question would just be, how do you get the good enough quality data out to do something with, basically?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sorry, I've derailed this conversation into deep machine learning. So let's
just to reiterate, we're not planning to launch a CCTV camera, nor a body worn camera. Yeah. I think we are busy enough solving for the multimedia use cases at the moment, actually, basically.
Yeah.
So we've talked about things that you don't necessarily have upcoming. What do you guys have upcoming aside from the couple of things that we've spoken about today? What is on your calendar? What is in your plan to address over the course of the next, maybe the rest of the year?
Yeah, so
beyond.
Yeah, as I say, we've started off very heavily in video. We're now adding a range of new audio capabilities, and that's as I think I explained earlier on the call. Part of that we're now looking at transcription as a mode to do two things actually. One, it's quite a useful way of navigating the video because if you know when someone said something, you can actually use that to go back to certain frames. It's also quite a useful way of muting and redacting the audio stream by using the text. Once you have the text, we can also automatically detect all of the PII and other information that's in there. And so capabilities-wise, I say we've got video, we're building out audio, and then as we bring text online, that will add a bunch of benefits. We're finding that there are other entity types that people care a lot about. And so we've got a screen detector that's going in, we've got scenic text, logos and insignia, and then kind of like ID cards and things, which seem to be frequent enough on people's lists that it makes sense to have some level of automation for in the application. So there'll be a bunch of new kind of those coming online. We've got, as I said earlier, our new entity builder. So you'll be able to go in and build up a specific entity that you can then track throughout the full video, and then anonymize or de-anonymize. Probably some re-identification in that as well. It's quite tricky to do re-ID on security footage because you're basically talking about sometimes 7 or 8 pixels. Right. And so there are benefits. There are other things you can use alongside that to help with the process. But that will be one area that we're looking at. The other big thing that we've come across is at the moment we have the concept of an admin and a user. We're also now adding in reviewer capability. So we found that in a bunch of our use cases, someone does the redaction work, but actually someone else needs to go in and review it. And with review comes, secure sharing and a bunch of other capabilities as well. And so the next 6 months are going to be very much about building out a lot of the broader application areas on the system, so that it just becomes more of a, a detailed workflow tool for multimedia redaction, basically.
Very cool. It's going to be really interesting to see that.
Yeah.
So I know you also mentioned you guys are going to be in Las Vegas for a conference. Where else could people run into you at? Are you going to be at additional conferences throughout the next few months? Where will you be?
Middle of the year in the UK, we're going to be in a modernizing criminal justice conference in the UK, and then later on in the year there's likely to be another security show in the UK again, and then we also have planned a number of exhibiting at partner days as well. So I think we've probably mentioned a couple of times along through today's conversation about the kind of the ecosystem view, and as Simon's mentioned, our kind of interoperability, and therefore, we've got a number of sort of partners in the space, and so a lot of our time on the event side is kind of jointly with partners as well.
Yeah. So it's next week, isn't it? ISC West.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So we're at ISC West, which is one of the big US security conferences next week. I think we're in the emerging tech area. As I say, we'll have a couple of live demos on the stand. One with our live video anonymization and analytics, and then we'll also have the file redaction system up for demonstration as well. We did the show last year. Actually, it was really good. So we're looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have an office in San Francisco too. It's probably worth saying. So we're kind of UK and kind of San Francisco based. So we've got the guys coming over, and Guy and myself are heading over as well. So it's a very strange place to work, I have to say, Las Vegas. It's a very, very, very strange place to go and work for a week. Yeah.
What is the difference between you guys working in your UK office and your San Francisco office?
Well, it's midnight now and pitch dark and cold.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas it would be mid-afternoon? I think the sun's shining at the moment, isn't it?
I can't speak for San Francisco. Seattle, we are actually getting some rare April sunshine.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, yeah. Very nice.
It's unfortunately cloudy there.
How is it?
Oh yeah, in San Francisco, yeah, and it's gonna rain.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay. For viewers that are still on, if you could take 30 seconds out of your day and give us some feedback, I have posted a link to a survey in the comments section. Also ticked it across the bottom, but I will put it across there one more time. If you can provide feedback, we absolutely love feedback. Let us know how we did. Any last minute thoughts from Simon or Guy? I do have, is it all right if I share LinkedIn information so that they can reach out and contact you if they have additional questions or use cases that might not have been brought up today?
Please do, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
I'm dropping that in chat as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a great show. It's very interesting. And if anybody is interested, there are some really cool customer success stories on their website that I have gone ahead and dropped up here on the screen. Any last minute questions from anybody, go ahead and drop it in chat. Otherwise, any last minute thoughts from any of the other panelists?
We would very much like to have Chime use our services. That would be great. That's a very good suggestion, Shardul. We'll be following up with you tomorrow.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm on that.
Yep. Yep.
You can make it happen very quickly.
It's not until we do these, because we get so busy focusing on our kind of operations that it's not until you have these conversations that you remember just how big the opportunities are again. And actually spending some time thinking about all the other use cases is very interesting. And so I think for us, given the stage of business we're at, we're only ever going to be able to focus on a smaller number of those sectors really well. And so having other partners who can pick up our APIs and integrations and, go do some of those other sectors with us is I think there's a really good benefit to the ecosystem to do that. So it was good so thank you for inviting us on. And it was great that great that we're able to go through that, I think.
Awesome. Thank you all for attending Howdy Partner, and catch us next week when we bring on a different partner. I have no idea who it is.
Yes, catch us next week on Wednesday again at our usual time, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. to see another great partner. Thanks everybody for your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Have a good afternoon, evening, or morning, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.